It all started with her smirk. That familiar arrogance I had grown to hate. "Got a problem," she said, tossing her passport onto the counter. "Get a divorce if you're going to be petty." She didn't even try to hide it. Her lover was in Spain, her excitement radiating from her every movement. I stared at her, feeling the usual surge of anger and betrayal. But I didn't react. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I didn't plead. I simply nodded, my voice calm. "Have a good trip?" That day, I realized she had underestimated me one final time. She assumed my patience and composure meant weakness. What she didn't know was that silence, strategy, and timing were far deadlier than rage. I wasn't going to chase her or beg for her loyalty. I was going to let her arrogance set the stage for the consequences she had earned. Days passed, each one a silent torment as I waited for her return. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't show any sign of desperation. Instead, I planned. Every detail mattered. The divorce papers, the logistics, the timing. I imagined her walking through the door, smug, smiling, bragging as she always did. And I knew exactly how to respond. Patience had become my weapon. When she finally returned, dragging herself through the front door with her lover gone. But the arrogance still lingering. She expected shock, panic, or at least a fight. But I remained calm. I watched her parade through the living room, expecting me to crumble at the audacity. And I let her think that for a moment, letting the suspense build. The power shift subtly into my hands without her even realizing it. Then in my calm voice, I said, "Papers on the table, bags packed. Get out." Her smirk froze instantly. Her eyes widened, jaw-dropping as the words hit her like a lightning bolt. She had assumed I would beg, that I would collapse, that her bravado would intimidate me. She hadn't accounted for patience, strategy, and control. The air changed instantly. My silence had already done half the work, and my words completed it. She stumbled backward, looking around as if expecting someone to intervene, someone to undo the power I had reclaimed. But there was no one. The moment was mine, pure and unshakable. The arrogance, the casual betrayal, the assumption that she could return and flaunt her audacity. Every bit of it crumbled under the weight of my calm, calculated response. Her lips quivered as she opened her mouth, trying to explain, to justify, to charm her way out of the mess she had created. "It was just a trip," she stammered. I didn't mean, but I didn't flinch. I didn't interrupt. I simply watched, letting her unravel in real time. Every attempt to manipulate, every half-hearted excuse, revealed the depth of her audacity and her failure to anticipate consequences. I had orchestrated the perfect moment. She returned expecting admiration or fear, and instead found authority, control, and finality. The house was quiet except for her panicked breath. Her world, once filled with confidence and arrogance, collapsed in a way she had never imagined. She realized at that moment that I was not the weak, compliant man she assumed. I was calm, collected, and far beyond her expectations. Then came the realization in her eyes, the slow, painful dawning that her freedom, her arrogance, her little game had all been illusions. I didn't need to raise my voice to humiliate her publicly or to create a scene. The truth, the finality of my words was enough. She had underestimated strategy, patience, and timing. I had let her arrogance create the perfect scenario for exposure. And now she faced the consequences fully. Every smug thought she had about the trip, every boastful story she had imagined telling, every fantasy of power over me shattered. I watched her, silent and commanding as the reality sunk in. The moment was devastating for her, satisfying for me, and utterly unforgettable for anyone witnessing. This was not revenge born of rage. It was control wielded flawlessly. Her hands trembled as she reached for her bags. Her confidence gone, replaced by fear and shock. Employees or neighbors who happened to witness her demeanor later would describe it as a complete breakdown, though privately, I simply observed. She had thought she could return to a life of arrogance, manipulation, and audacity, expecting no consequences. But I had set the rules, and now the rules were being enforced. The papers lay on the table, bags packed, the finality of my calm words echoing louder than any shouting could. Her panic grew as she realized she couldn't manipulate this moment away. Every trick, every flirtation, every act of betrayal had led her here. And in that silence, her world narrowed down to one thing: the consequences of underestimating me. Finally, she looked up, tears in her eyes, shame and shock mixing with disbelief. "You can't," she whispered, trying to protest, to bargain, to regain a shred of control. But I didn't move. I didn't need to. Every word I had spoken, every calculated pause had already dismantled her confidence. She realized fully painfully that her return had been a mistake, that her arrogance had blinded her to the consequences. And as she shuffled out, dragging her bags behind her, she knew she had been outplayed entirely. My calmness had been more powerful than her bravado. My patience had been more devastating than her arrogance, and my control. My calculated authority had shattered the illusion she had built around herself. When the door finally closed behind her, silence reclaimed the house. No shouting, no confrontation, just absolute, undeniable victory. I hadn't needed to humiliate her publicly. I hadn't needed to yell or create drama. I had used calm, strategy, and perfect timing to reclaim the power she thought she had stolen. She had returned expecting triumph, expecting me to bow to her audacity. And instead, she left shattered, speechless, and exposed. Every ounce of her arrogance had been crushed, every expectation overturned, and in that quiet moment, I realized the truth. Patience and calculation are far more powerful than anger, and silence can destroy far more effectively than words ever could. She had thought she controlled the game, but in reality, I had been in control all along, and everyone who witnessed it would never forget the look on her face.